Besides the ownership variations we've seen, there's some other terms that are worth understanding. For instance, dual licensing is a licensing model where a software developer provides software under two different licenses. This allows users to choose the license that best suits their needs. For example, a company may choose to pay for the commercial license to maintain the proprietary nature of their product, while a non-profit organization may choose to make use of the software without cost. An example of dual license software is the MySQL database. Multi-licensing is a licensing model where a software developer provides their software under several different licenses. Each license may have different terms and conditions, allowing users to choose the license that best suits their needs. For example, a company may choose to use the proprietary license for internal use while releasing a different version for external use. An example of multi-license software is the Qt framework. Conditional licensing is where the use of the software is conditioned on meeting certain requirements, such as payment or compliance with specific rules or regulations. For example, a developer may offer their software for free, but require that any modifications made to the software must be made available under the same open source license. Another example of conditional licensing is when a software developer requires payment for commercial use of their software, but allows non-commercial use for free. Software patents are legal protections granted to inventors of software that cover specific methods, processes, or algorithms used in a software product. These patents give the inventor exclusive rights to use, sell, or license the patented technology for a limited period of time. Software patents and open source licensing can sometimes be at odds with each other, as they represent different approaches to intellectual property and software development. For example, if a company holds a software patent on a particular technology used in an open source project, they could potentially use that patent to prevent others from using or distributing the open source software without their permission. This could be seen as a violation of the spirit of open source licensing, which seeks to promote collaboration and free sharing of ideas. To address this issue, some open source licenses include specific patent provisions that grant users of the software certain rights related to any software patents that are related to the open source project. For example, the Apache Software Foundation's Apache License 2.0 includes a patent license that grants users of the software a license to any patents that are essential to the software. Paid distribution refers to the practice of selling or charging for access to open source software. This is often done by companies that provide additional services or support for the open source software, such as consulting, customization, training, or maintenance. While open source software is typically available for free, companies are allowed to generate revenue by selling services or support related to the software. By providing additional value-added services, companies can differentiate themselves from competitors and attract customers who are willing to pay for those services. For example, a company that provides consulting services for a popular open source database software like PostgreSQL might charge customers for help with installation, configuration, and optimization. By charging for access to the software, developers can also generate revenue that can be used to pay for further development, bug fixes, or improvements to the software. This model is sometimes used by smaller open source projects that don't have access to other resources of funding like grants or donations. Similarly, modified software distribution refers to the distribution of software that's been customized or modified in some way. This could include adding new features or functionality, fixing bugs, or changing the user interface. Modified software distribution is more common in the open source world, where users have the legal right to access and modify the source code of the software. It's worth noting that while paid and modified distribution of open source software is allowed under most open source licenses, some licenses place restrictions on how the software can be used or distributed. For example, the GNU General Public License requires that any derivative works of the software also be licensed under the GPL and made available to others for free. Therefore, companies that sell software based on GPL licensed code must still make the source code available to others for free. Software or service contracts can happily coexist with open source licenses, but they operate under different legal frameworks and serve different purposes. Open source licenses are a type of legal document that governs the use, modification, and distribution of open source software. They're designed to ensure that the software remains open and accessible to users and developers, and to prevent any one entity from taking exclusive control over the software. Software or service contracts, on the other hand, are agreements between two parties that govern the provision of software or services. For example, the company might provide consulting or customization services related to an open source content management system, and might require customers to sign a service contract in order to receive those services. These contracts might cover issues such as support and maintenance, warranties, indemnification, or liability. It's important to note that while software or service contracts can coexist with open source licenses, they cannot be used to override the terms of the open source license. Open source licenses are legal documents that govern the use, modification, and distribution of open source software, and they take precedence over any other agreements or contracts related to the software. Therefore, any software or service contracts related to open source software must be drafted in a way that's consistent with the terms of the open source license, and must not attempt to impose additional restrictions or limitations on the use, modification, and distribution of the software. I should also make it perfectly clear that software licenses are a serious business. Violating the terms of a license can result in a civil or even criminal prosecution along with significant fines. It's your responsibility to be aware of the specific license requirements of any software you're using and to comply with its conditions.